Well, hey, folks, we're here on YouTube because we couldn't get on Facebook. And yesterday, apparently, I was on my personal page, not on the general page when I broadcast. I am so sorry. See, this is what happens when Corey has to go get her teeth worked on, and I'm by myself and I'm not very good at things sometimes. Take the relationship, partnership, people who have different skills to balance things out. Boy, am I glad she was here today because going on YouTube, not my skill set. My other option was to try live on Facebook. And yeah, well, you saw how that worked yesterday. I have other skills. What can I tell you? So speaking of skills, I wanted to really bring up something that's been coming up lately a lot. Well, like, do you have to get diagnosed or do you have to get somebody diagnosed to help? And it's like, well, no. Do I have to know that you have dementia or I have dementia in order for us to have a relationship? It's like, well, no. But it would help if you started to notice that maybe one of us has experienced some change in abilities, some change in how things work for us. Now, if both of us are having those changes, then it's even more important that we sort of don't think, I'm fine, you're the problem, because that becomes this weapon. You know, if my thought is, well, I'm not changing, you're changing, and if you're changing, you're the, and it's like, well, you know, not all change is bad change. People think about dementia as being this awful, awful thing, and I agree. It's not the thing anybody should desire or want to have. I would never want to have it. I don't think anybody who has it is going, yay, I just got dementia. That's not what happened. But I think there's a real difference between recognizing this is really hard. This can be really frustrating at times. This is really not what I planned. This isn't how I want things to be, but it is how things are. So you know what? All right, I can sit and whine about it and complain about it and feel frustrated about it, or I can acknowledge, wow, this is how things are. What am I going to do now? And I think anybody who's ever survived and made it through a condition where you thought, I'll never get through this. This is a life change. This is a change that, oh my gosh, what happened? How did that happen? Can I go back? And if the answer is yeah, no, you can't. Whether it's a relationship that ends, whether it's a body part that doesn't work anymore, whether it's, can I have the eyesight I had when I was 20? You can try the LASIK. I'm not convinced it's going to give me eyesight that I had when I was 20. It may help me with acuity and things, but my speed of processing hasn't really gone back 20. So, I mean, when we change, we change. And so some of those changes are truly, that's where we are. So what do I do with the change I have? What's my new normal? And with the group that I started and we make a difference with, we think, is that we say, okay, so here's the new normal. What are we going to do with it? So the first thing you have to do is become aware we've got something different here. And the something different isn't something that can be fixed. So if I acknowledge, wow, something's changing, and I don't even know whether it can be fixed or not, but I'm noticing the change, we have two things to do now. We have the immediate, what do I do in this moment with this interaction, to not pull out weapons and start trying to use them when that's not going to be helpful. But also, what do I do looking at a longer range picture? If I don't know if this is fixable or not, then one of my first things to do is I wonder if this is something that actually could be turned around and taken back to a place that's less challenging, less different, or if this is the new normal here. So is there a road back, or is this really the pathway that I'm going to be moving forward? So now I'm on this pathway. What am I going to do with this? Well, now I have some choices to make moving forward on that pathway. So whether or not you've been diagnosed, if there are changes, have you noticed them? So I'm going to give you some of the more classic changes that if we pause, we might notice either in ourselves or in someone else, but only about half the time, if the person is actually living with the brain changes that come with dementia, would they be able to do this. And actually, that's true about us too. It's not like they're people living with dementia have this special population, but they aren't. I know that sounds confusing, but so one of the areas that might be changing is my ability to be aware of me and my abilities and whether they're shifting, or whether the shift that I'm experiencing is coming because somebody else's abilities are changing, or the environment is really different, and the demands are really different. And I need some guidance in how to do something differently because things are feeling very different. So if we've ever got a hint of that, COVID-19 would certainly be a place where we've learned, wow, things are really different and I've got to change to adapt to the different. So do I have the ability to do it? Well, it's turning out a lot of people think they have the ability to do that, but the spread and the death rate of this virus, boy, I've got to tell you, I don't think everybody's quite as good at it as we thought we were. And we can't use what we used before to just keep us moving forward. We've had to make some really significant shifts. And I'm not sure we hit all the marks at this point, but I think we know some things that are helpful, but getting ourselves to do them and to build the new synapses that allow us to do it with less effort and really have built in the routines. Well, we seem to be having, as a whole world or a whole nation, having a hard time doing that with consistency. We're having a hard time in communities and buildings, and you can see the rates going up really high. When people think they're okay, they've got it. They don't need to worry about it. And the really thing that was really distressing that I just got an article that I actually think is an accurate article, that about 30% of all COVID deaths are happening in things like assisted livings, and in some places up to 50% of deaths or even 70% of deaths are happening through places where people live in congregation or in groupings. So that's pretty significant. Over 80% of everybody who's actually dying from COVID is over the age of 65. So it gives us some information, but what are we going to do with that? So do you need to know if you have dementia to move forward? And the answer is, well, here's some things that might make you wonder about a brain change that needs some change on our part to support someone. One is impulse control changes in ability to control impulses. What I want to do and what I like to do and what I sometimes even say I need to do, what I need, what I like, what I want is driving more of what I do versus me going, whoa, hang on. I like to talk to people up close and personal without a mask on, and I like to hug people and interact with people. And now we've got this thing going on. Is this a case where my brain is able to adapt, and so I'm able to do some things that would make potentially getting really close to another human being safer? Maybe not perfectly safe, but safer, so I can still do the things that either I like to do, I want to do, I need to do as part of my job or part of my role in life, or they have a need that I want to meet, but I'm going to control some of my impulses. Or am I noticing that I have a really hard time with impulses, or my impulse is to pull way back and not do anything. I can't put my hands, I can't get within 6 feet. That's what they said. I can't do that. That's also impulsive because it speaks to that lack of ability in the impulse control area to get your brain to think and to go through sort of this decision-making process by gathering data, pausing, gathering up the data, and then making an informed choice. So if that's different than how you used to be, that probably signals a brain change. If that's, however, exactly how you've always been, then probably that's just how you've always been. And I want to be thoughtful because it means I still need to know how to interact with you. That hasn't changed, but probably it's always been a challenge for me to do that. So I want to make sure I'm doing it when I'm at my peak performance, because I really need to make sure that I'm not falling into a trap of being frustrated with the new circumstance, given your old habit and behavior and your abilities and your routines. And I've got to watch myself because I may get more impulsive. I may have challenges getting my brain to engage because it's just so frustrating. So my emotions. So the second thing may be that We may want to notice whether or not being able to hold on to details of what we just did or just talked about might not be what it was, because it's called recent or immediate recall. So recent memory means what we did within like a 24-hour period or a 48-hour period. And immediate recall means the thing that I was working on right then. So do I remember that when I put my face mask on and I put on my gloves, that I shouldn't immediately start doing things on the surface and then adjust my mask, because because this is that having to think about the details of now COVID mixed, and it's really complicated because see, I was already doing something, and now I've got to insert all these COVID guidelines into my routines, and I've talked about that from the beginning because I always thought that was a point where immediate recall was going to get in our way for being safe and being effective and figuring this out. I mean, the idea that I'm going to put on a mask and leave that mask on as I move through an entire environment with different people, some of whom will have protective gear on and some who won't. Well, what I might be doing is taking what was on one person, getting it on me, not in me, but on me, and then going to another person. And so I'm now the person who transmissions from person to person. And so how do I where is the boundary? Do we have a group of people who are going to go maskless and PPE-less or limited? And I'm going to take responsibility for what I come into that situation with, but they have been gathered together as a group. And so I'm actually the thing that creates the highest risk, as long as they're in a space and a situation where we can manage some of the risk. And so have I noticed some changes in my coworkers, in myself, that's making that more challenging? How do we address it in a way that doesn't feel like, ooh, 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 but it does go, ooh, I noticed something. So the idea of helping someone versus just pointing out the errors in someone, quote unquote, the errors in somebody's behavior. So how about the ability to find the right words? So if my ability to find words is being impacted, maybe that's something to think about, because it means if I'm having a hard time finding words inside my own brain, I'm probably not listening a whole lot to the ones you're putting out there. But if I'm looking for a word and you're out there and you're offering me words and they aren't the ones I'm looking for, then I could get frustrated with you because you're not coming up with the one I want. And I'm trying to give you the, like when when you go to the place and you're going, I don't know what you're talking. And so there's a high risk here where we both pull out weapons, because words are either tools or weapons, but it depends on how you can work with them. And we're trying to give them back and forth to each other. And it's like, you ask for a screwdriver, I hand you a screwdriver, and you say, that's not what I asked you for. And it's like, well, that is what you asked me for. No, it's not. And it's like, okay, do I recognize in that moment that the person used the wrong name for the tool, quote unquote, for our common vocabulary, but their brain told them there was another word for this object. So I might want to change my strategy so that I'm using a tool, which would be, so you're talking about the thing that does what? So you were talking about the thing that does this or a thing that does, show me what you would do with the screwdriver. Okay, so it goes like that, yeah. Huh, okay, well, I thought that's what oh, wait a minute. Is it this one? Because what I handed her was a Phillips head, not a flathead. And so for her, that was not the screwdriver of choice. She got screwdriver, but when I handed her the one she didn't want, then Corey was frustrated with me because, duh, what are you, an idiot? You can't look at the screw head? Of course, I'm not where she is. I can't even see the screw head. She had the screwdriver's hand laying there. I handed her the one that I picked up. I wasn't, we're back to that not thinking. I was sort of impulsive. And rather than going, Corey, did you want the Phillips head or the flathead? Or just say, Philip, which one of these, Corey? and just showing her and let her pick so that she would have the right tool. So what I did was sort of display a little poor judgment. I mean, it wasn't on purpose. I wasn't doing it on purpose, but I did display a little problem with judgment. We have, of course, social skills if we fuss at each other, and then we have emotional distress. And we might even have something like confabulation, where my brain starts saying, well, you did it. Why do you always do this? And it's like, I don't always do this. So what I'm talking about is when we see symptoms that somebody's brain is not working well, I don't think we need a diagnosis. I don't think we should be necessarily seeking one in that moment. What we need in that moment are skills to help us be supportive, really figure out how to use tools, not weapons. But then we do want to take a step back and go, okay, what's going on here? Is this a pattern, a new pattern that we want to explore with the person for ourselves first to see whether do you think it's me or do you think it's going on? And we have to have a safe place to do that, or our brains won't let us do it really well. I mean, that's just how our brains are. They're really committed to like trying to figure this out, but not if somebody's going to start accusing. So anyway, my message for today is I truly do not believe in any one interaction. We need to label each other as having something or being something, but I think we can make choices. Do I engage? And if I engage, will I use tools or will I be pulling weapons? And if I'm thinking about a weapon, maybe the best I can do is say, you know what? I'm not sure I'm the best person to interact with right now. I'm going to take a pause here and see what I can do and see if I can come back in a way that's helpful to you. Is there someone else I can bring in, offer up, who might be more to your liking? Because right now it feels like we're not on the same page. And being willing to say, is it possibly me? I don't know. But I know that continuing right now is probably not going to be good for either one of us, because one of us is going to draw a weapon, maybe both. Anyway, an opportunity to look at ourselves and look at others and say, is this a new normal? I don't know. But for right now, it seems to be what it is not working. So either one of us works on our tool set, or we decide, I need a timeout. I'm not it right now. But we don't necessarily need to leave the person hanging. We could call in reinforcements, or at least suggest, is there someone else that you might want to try to talk with, because I don't think I'm it. It's just a way of being present when you can't be present, or being helpful when you're not sure what to do. And it's not really about dementia. It's about being a supportive human being. All right, everybody. Hopefully we'll be back on Straight Facebook tomorrow, but you never know. So keep your eye open for a shift over, or maybe you'll watch it later. Anyway, hope your day goes well. Whether you're living with a brain change that's permanent or it was just a moment, that's what I'm doing today. Take care, everybody.